She gave him 18 years of her life. 18 birthdays. 18 winters. 18 summers spent watching the same empty road, believing that one day he would come back. And he did. But he didn't come back for her. He came back for her younger sister. In a quiet American town where everybody knew everybody, that kind of betrayal didn't just break a heart. It became the kind of story people whispered about for years. And this was Evelyn Parker's story. When Evelyn was 19, she fell in love with Daniel Reeves. Back then, Daniel had the kind of smile that made promises sound permanent. He was charming, ambitious, the kind of young man who talked about leaving their small town and building a bigger life somewhere beyond it. Evelyn loved that about him. She didn't want a safe love. She wanted a forever kind of love. And Daniel made it sound so easy. He told her he just needed time. Time to make something of himself. Time to build a future worthy of her. He said he didn't want to marry her. While he was still broke and drifting, he wanted to come back with something real, something solid, something that proved he deserved her. So one evening, standing under the porch light, outside her parents' old white house, he held both her hands and said the words that would quietly steal nearly 2 decades of her life. "Wait for me." And Evelyn did. She believed in him with the blind loyalty only first love can create. She believed in the version of him he sold to her, the hardworking dreamer, the man who would go away for a while and return for her. A week later, Daniel left town, and Evelyn watched his truck disappear at the end of Maple Street, not knowing she had just watched her youth drive away with it.
At first, the waiting felt romantic. Daniel called when he could. He wrote letters now and then. The first year, Evelyn kept every word he sent her. She folded his letters carefully and tied them with a ribbon like they were sacred. When people asked if she missed him, she smiled and said, "He's coming back." And for a while, that answer felt like enough. But time has a way of exposing promises. 1 year turned into 3. 3 turned into 5. The calls became less frequent. The letters stopped sounding warm. Then they stopped coming at all. Still, Evelyn stayed loyal. When other men asked her out, she said no. When her mother told her, gently at first, and then with growing concern, that life could not be built around someone who wasn't there, Evelyn defended him. When neighbors started whispering that Daniel had probably moved on, Evelyn pretended not to hear them. She worked at the town diner in the mornings, took care of her father when his health started failing, and spent her evenings on the front porch, staring at the road, like faith alone could pull him back. And through all of it, one person stayed beside her. Her younger sister, Rose. Rose was everything Evelyn was not. Warm where Evelyn was guarded. Light where Evelyn had become heavy. She had a way of making even sad houses feel alive. She would sit beside Evelyn at night, hand her a cup of coffee, and say, "If he really loves you, he'll come back." And Evelyn believed her. Because if there was one person she trusted as much as she trusted Daniel, it was Rose. By the time Evelyn turned 30, waiting no longer looked romantic. It looked tragic. Her friends were married. Some had children in middle school. The girls she once laughed with in church pews now talked about mortgages, school, schedules, and anniversaries. And Evelyn? Evelyn still answered questions about Daniel with the same tired smile. He'll come back. But even she no longer sounded convinced. At 32, she almost said yes to another man. His name was Mark. He was kind, divorced, honest, the sort of man who didn't make grand promises. Because he knew real love wasn't built on drama. It was built on showing up. He asked Evelyn to dinner 3 times before she finally agreed. And for one brief moment, something in her shifted. She laughed again. She slept through the night. She even bought a new dress. But the night Mark gently reached for her hand, Across the table, Evelyn pulled away. Not because she didn't like him, but because some part of her still belonged to a promise made under a porch light 13 years earlier. She went home, cried in the dark, and told Mark she wasn't ready. What she didn't say was this: she wasn't waiting for Daniel anymore. She was waiting for all those wasted years to mean something. Then, when Evelyn was 37 years old, Daniel came back. No warning, no letter, no call. Just one ordinary afternoon. A truck rolled into town and parked outside the diner. At first, nobody recognized him. Time had changed him. He looked older, harder. He carried himself like a man, with stories he didn't want to tell. But when he stepped through the diner door and looked up, Evelyn knew instantly. It was Daniel. For a second, the whole room disappeared. The clatter of dishes, the hum of conversation, the old country song playing on the radio, all of it gone. 18 years. 18 years collapsed into one breath. Daniel looked at her, like he'd rehearsed that moment in his head 1,000 times. Evelyn. And just like that, her heart betrayed her, before her mind could protect it.
That night, the town buzzed with the news. Daniel Reeves was back. People assumed the ending had finally arrived. The love story, the reunion, the reward for all that waiting. Even Evelyn let herself believe it. For the first time in years, she stood in front of a mirror and imagined what it would feel like to stop waiting, to finally be chosen. But Daniel didn't move toward her the way she expected. He was kind, respectful, careful, almost too careful. He asked about her father, her work, her life. He apologized for the silence, said life had gotten complicated, said he had made mistakes, said he hadn't known how to come back after so much time. But he never said the one thing she needed to hear. I came back for you. And then slowly, something else began to happen. Something small at first. Something Evelyn almost refused to see. Daniel spent time with Rose. At family dinners, he noticed her jokes. At church gatherings, he lingered near her. When Rose spoke, Daniel listened in a way. He no longer listened to Evelyn. It was subtle enough to deny. Until it wasn't. One evening, Evelyn came home earlier than expected. The kitchen lights were on. The house was quiet. And from the back porch, she heard laughter. Daniel's laughter. Rose's laughter. Evelyn stepped closer, her pulse rising with something she didn't yet want to name. Through the screen door, she saw them. Rose standing near the railing. Daniel beside her. Too close. Close in the way people only stand when something has already crossed the line. Then Daniel reached for Rose's hand. And Rose let him. Evelyn froze. For one long, unbearable second, no one moved. Then Rose looked up and saw her. The color drained from her face. Evelyn. But Evelyn was already backing away. She didn't scream, didn't throw anything, didn't demand an explanation. Because some pain is so sharp, it doesn't come out as anger. It comes out as silence. 3 days later, Daniel asked to speak with her. They met on the same porch, where he had once told her to wait for him. Only this time, he stood a little farther away. He said he never meant to hurt her. He said feelings had changed. He said life had changed them both. And then he said the words that would haunt her forever. I didn't come back for what we were. I came back and found something different. Something different. As if 18 years of her life could be folded into 2 careless words. A week later, the town learned the truth. Daniel was going to marry Rose. Not someday. Soon. And just like that, Evelyn became the woman everyone pitied. The woman who waited. The woman who lost. The woman who watched her little sister walk down the aisle with the man she had loved for half her life. The wedding was small, civil, quiet, almost ashamed of itself. Evelyn did not attend. She sat alone on the porch in the fading light, listening to the distant church bells. That sounded less like celebration and more like something being buried. When the sun went down, she thought the worst of it was over. She was wrong. That night, Rose came to her room, still wearing her wedding makeup, still wearing the ring. In her hands was a small bundle tied with a faded ribbon. Daniel's letters. All of them. Evelyn stared at the stack, like she was looking at a ghost. Rose's voice shook as she spoke. I need to tell you something. Years ago, after the first few letters stopped coming regularly, more had arrived. Not many, but enough. Letters Evelyn had never seen. Rose had hidden them. At first, she told herself, she was protecting her sister, because the letters changed. They grew colder, shorter, more distant. Daniel stopped writing like a man in love, and started writing like a man, trying to escape a promise he no longer wanted to keep. Then one letter changed everything. In it, Daniel admitted he had fallen in love with someone else while he was away. He wrote that Evelyn should not wait for him anymore. He said he was sorry. He said she deserved a life beyond him. Rose read that letter before Evelyn ever could, and she burned it because she couldn't bear to watch Evelyn break. But that wasn't the whole truth. The real truth was uglier. Rose had been in love with Daniel for years. Not loudly, not openly, but quietly, secretly, shamefully. She listened to Evelyn talk about him so long, imagine him so often, build him into something so mythical, that eventually Rose fell in love with the ghost of him too. By the time Daniel returned, Rose didn't just know who he was. She already knew how to want him. Evelyn looked at her sister, stunned beyond tears. And in that moment, she realized something devastating. They had not betrayed her when they got married. They had betrayed her years earlier. The wedding was only the final act. The next morning, Evelyn packed a suitcase. Not dramatically, not angrily, just quietly. She left the porch, the road, the diner, the house full of memories, the small town that had watched her wait, and turned her pain into gossip. She moved 3 states away, started over, found work in a bookstore near the coast, cut her hair, made friends who never knew the version of her who had spent half a lifetime staring down an empty road. And slowly, painfully, she began to understand something. The deepest heartbreak wasn't losing Daniel. It was losing herself to the idea of him. Years later, Daniel showed up one final time. Older, tired, alone. His marriage to Rose had fallen apart, almost exactly the way Evelyn's faith in him had. Quietly, predictably, without grace. He stood outside Evelyn's apartment and asked if they could talk, asked if there had ever been a chance for forgiveness. Evelyn looked at him for a long moment. Then she said the only thing that mattered. I didn't lose you when you married my sister. I lost you the day I mistook waiting for love. And she closed the door. For 18 years, Evelyn thought her story was about loyalty, but it wasn't. It was about what happens when a woman gives her life to a promise that was never worthy of her. Daniel came back. Rose chose him. The town talked. But in the end, the real twist wasn't that he married her younger sister. It was that losing them was the first time Evelyn finally chose herself. Some people break your heart by leaving. Others break it by coming back too late. But the worst betrayal of all is waiting so long for someone that you forget you were always enough without them.